Or to die. Welcome back to Wander and Wonder. How are you now? I'm your host, Mitchell Langdon, and we're here from America once again, doing it what we try to practice doing every day. Not always filmed for y'all, but here we are, getting back to nature, reminding ourselves just where it is we come from. So it can be so hard to remember on those busy streets sometimes. We're among the colors of nature, the browns and the greens. Everything's looking really fresh as summer starts to take bloom here. Springtime is waning and the full, lush season of growth is upon us. Seeds have been planted and the plants are responding. So out here in North America, we don't have consistent weather year-round unless you're on the West Coast, or we have to deal with some pretty harsh conditions sometimes. And it's all part of a cycle of life and death. And here we are, almost at the summer solstice, which is the center of life in bloom in the world. It's important to just get out there and breathe it in, see the sights. Don't be stuck on the screen. Some of you people watch these videos on YouTube, which kind of sucks sometimes because, unless you pay $20 a month for premium, then you can't put your device on hold. If you're out there just working or whatever, you can't put your device on hold and just listen to it. It's nice to see the sights. I assume some of y'all are watching on a screen or whatever, but some people just listen. So that's why I decided that I'm going to start uploading these videos to other platforms. There's a bunch of reasons why I think that's a good idea, but one of the main reasons is, just so y'all can hit the hold button, and that way you can just listen to these things while you're doing whatever it is you're doing. I've thought about maybe creating podcast format, things like that, but my number one platform is going to be Odyssey. Because I don't know, they feel a lot like YouTube. It's not totally just full up with crazy people who've been censored, but it seems to be somewhat of a well-rounded community. And so if you're still watching this on YouTube, go check out Odyssey. You should probably get off this website because it seems to be a pretty integral part of the technocracy, which is taking over our world slowly but surely and with your consent. So just withdraw your consent. No one's forcing you to be on YouTube. No one's forcing you to be on Facebook or Twitter or Instagram. It's important to know what these platforms are designed to do. And, apart from connect you with your friends, you got to realize that there are computer programs at work which are trying to push a certain type of post to the forefront of your consciousness. And if I know anything about frequency, and I've mentioned this before, your frequency is what you frequently see. So get away from the platforms that just want your time, that just want your energy. They're no good for you. And what's most important is, what you're seeing, what you're exposing yourself to. That will in large part determine your spiritual health. And as we all know, like body, mind, spirit, these things are all connected. So do yourself the favor, just like you would do with lifting or with going for a walk or eating healthy or anything like that. Do yourself the favor and get off the platforms that are, parasitic, that are thriving off of your time. And especially if you're paying for it, like if you're paying for something like YouTube, $20 a month, like, yeah, whatever. Maybe that doesn't seem like a lot in Canadian dollars. I don't know what it's like down here in America. Maybe it's a little more, a little less, but you don't want to be giving these companies, I don't know, what's $20? That's like $240 a year. And if you think about it in terms like that, it's quite a large amount of money. That's enough to spend on gas to go on a nice camping trip, like real far north, or it's enough to pay for a festival weekend if you're into live music and things like that. So don't give your money to these corporations. They're just going to suck the life out of you. They're no good. Get on Odyssey. It's free. You get cryptocurrency to play with just from watching videos. I don't know, it's like points, but you can send that around and help support the new system that's being built by people that have at least more of your best interest in mind. I mean, every corporation is going to want your time in one form or another. But I just feel like Odyssey is a little less parasitic, a little less ugly. You can talk about the algorithm a little bit too, and you can talk about body, mind, and spirit. You can talk about censorship. And one of the things I would like to talk about in terms of body, mind, and spirit, first of all, is the concept of 666. There's tons of stuff around 666, and you think of it as the biblical number of the beast, 603 score 6, I don't know, something like that. Try to impose the Bible verse where it talks about that overtop me, and I find it interesting. I think the Earth's speed around the sun is something alleged by NASA, which I don't believe for a second. It's 66,600 miles per hour. You spin around the Earth. And I think it's pretty funny. The Earth's axial tilt, 66.6 degrees. You can look these stats up. Maybe I'll try to link something to them. There's more sixes, embedded with NASA, but really, like, the metaphysics of 666 is more what I'm interested in. Like the numerology, like you think of it as 2/3. 2/3 implies a whole, 2/3 of a whole. That's the denominator. So the numerator in which we live, the 666 worldview, is neglecting 1/3 of the equation. And I've been thinking about this quite a bit, and when we look at our lives in Trinity form, like body, mind, and spirit, I feel as though the 666 is it's missing out on the spirit aspect. Maybe you get the body, obviously, this carnal, corporeal needs. Maybe you get the mind, but at least in the West, to have any type of seriously spiritual worldview, you can kind of be looked at as a crazy person, you know? To think that consciousness is really connected to anything greater. People can begin to look at you like you're some sort of a madman. And I think it can be really harmful. So it's important to just try to separate yourself from the society that wants you weak, from the society that pushes the programs that take you down a notch. And there's something undeniable about the spirit of nature. There's a real sense of renewal when you go out in the springtime and in the summertime. You can feel that inner sense of growth occurring, alongside nature. So yeah, I just believe that 666 it's a way to express the anti-spiritual nature of the society in which we live. Not necessarily the whole world, because I do believe this world is created by God, or whatever you want to call it, because some people get all huffing and puffing about God from whatever it is their parents or their priest class told them about God. So whatever you want to call it, the creator, the thing which all life reflects, it's absolutely undeniable if you spend enough time in nature and if you really do become acquainted with it. So don't neglect your spirituality. I'll talk a little bit more about the algorithm for sure, because you can't really talk about that enough. So you go on Instagram, and as a man, I'm not really sure from a woman's perspective, but as a man, you're often bombarded with some of the most sexual posts, and maybe as a woman you are too, because I've seen women go on Instagram and you see the types of posts that get right up to the top. And I think that these hypersexualized posts, first of all, they get a lot of attention because that's just the nature of of the mind, of the perceptions. Like, we have a deep desire, inner desire, to want to procreate and to find suitable mates, and there's certain ratios, certain parts of the body that activate some pretty extreme circuits, really get your nervous system firing. So you see a picture of an attractive nude woman, objectively attractive nude woman, and shit starts firing. This is why it's so important to stay away from pornography, and even the softcore pornography on Instagram. Like, anytime I see somebody trying to play into that hand, it's like, well, I'm going to post an intentionally sexy picture of myself. Anytime I see somebody doing that, I just immediately block them from my feed. There was a moment where, months actually, almost a year, where I just completely deleted social media, which I recommend people just take a break sometimes, or just get rid of it entirely. Use alternate forms of social media, because those things are just so harmful. But maybe as a man, you see these things and you're like, oh, like, shit, like and I know a weaker man oftentimes will fall into a spiral. Maybe you go on your phone, like, first thing in the morning, you're in bed, you're looking at your phone, see some picture, and it leads to just a spiral of unproductive activity, masturbation, ejaculation, and you're wasting your vital life essence by ejaculating, especially when it's to a bunch of pixels that don't care about how you're doing. Maybe as a woman, you see, like, my posts on spirituality and personal wellness, they're not really getting me anywhere. Like, maybe I have to show a little more skin. Like, maybe I have to do this or that. And in that way, the platform grooms you to become like those people. I'm not shit talking anyone. I think that we should have the freedom, to do what we want to do on this earth. But I do believe that the choice to, act from some sort of a higher moral place, it's an important choice to make. And if you have it, if you can flaunt it and you choose not to, if you choose something higher, something that will actually improve the lives of others, I think that's a great choice to make. You don't want to be a stumbling block for somebody else. Oh, there's a fox up there. No way I'm going to be able to see it. It's way up there. You don't want to be a stumbling block for somebody else on their path. This is kind of what I've been thinking about. Guys drinking beer. Or, oh man, it's beautiful. I'm not going to be able to see it. It's way up there. Well, if you guys get lucky, you'll see a fox. But yeah, this is the thing. It's like women posting stuff about, the body. And I'm not talking about sexuality, because sexuality it's a beautiful thing. It's a very magical thing, and you can tap into this force. And you can teach other people how to tap into this force as well, for their wellness, but not to drain them of their energy just so you can get more likes, more comments, more attention personally. You don't want to be parasitical on social media. Like I always say in these videos, I hope that you're getting more energy from these than you're spending. Because I put my personal effort into these videos so that somebody else may benefit perhaps from what I'm saying. And I don't want to set any type of bad example for anyone on this earth. As a man, oftentimes you'll see guys like, really indulging, really drinking and saying, oh, this is what a good time is. But I don't want anyone to get the wrong idea. So I'm really careful about, not smoking on air, not drinking on air. And even in my personal life, like, I avoid doing those things as much as possible now. And I must say that for a long while I was trapped in the grips of addiction. And it took a lot of love and a lot of personal work to get out of that. If you've been paying attention to my last video, I mentioned that I was sober a week. I filmed these videos a little bit in advance, and at this point we're looking at about 3 weeks. I think it's 3 weeks today. Not a drop of alcohol, no cigarettes or weed, just pure exercise, nature, love, and no white knuckle sobriety either. Like, really understanding the process of becoming sober is somewhat of a filtration or purge. And you got to put that energy somewhere, because generally it's not the drug that was ever the problem. The drug was a way to mitigate the problem. And, so you got to dig deep. You have to take a moral inventory, who you are, where you're at. You really got to try to fix yourself up. We got a guy running with the dog here. It's a perfect example. That's good stuff. Howdy. See, that's living. Buddy used to say to me, imagine living. Imagine just fucking living. Sorry to swear, but that's the idea. It's like, we're obviously alive. Are we living? Or are we just getting by, And that's the feeling of being on drugs and feeling like, you need that drug just to get by. You need that stupid job just to get by. Like, what we really want to do is connect back to this thing, and nature provides, like God provides. There's something here for us. If we can connect deeply enough to that thing and understand the forces at work, we can truly live. And it's not just nature, because like, we in of ourselves are part of nature. So really connect with yourself, really connect with your body, find out what's going on behind the scenes. Take an extremely honest moral inventory of yourself. And get past your addictions. Because there's life on the other side, and it may not seem like it sometimes. It really may not seem like it sometimes. In a lot of ways, I find the isolation of addiction very interesting. Find yourself really without, anyone in your immediate life that you really think understands. And this is sort of the type of life that most spiritual seekers experience. And that's why there are programs available, You can go and connect with people that are going through similar stuff. So if you're truly addicted, go get in a program if nothing else is working for you. The other thing is to replace one addiction with another. To replace one unhealthy habit with a healthy habit. And to think this is my life now. Some people have quit cigarettes with coffee. Some people have quit alcohol with working out. You've got to find what works for you, because those drugs are used to mitigate something inside of you. And I find it interesting, in archetypal neo-Jungian thinking, like Carl Jung, addictions are often equated with the lover archetype. You think of yourself as without love, or, maybe trapped in some sort of romance with this substance. This was for sure me with cigarettes or beer. I'd spend nights alone, these romantic walks with music in the twilight. And, wishing I had somebody to share that with. But in absence of that person or of that thing, it really felt like the only thing that I could share it with was that cigarette or that joint. And it's very strange, We're creatures of habit, and we start to really get entrenched in these relationships with things that are not necessarily human. But it's important to remember that the plants themselves were alive and contain an essence of a spirit. And some people truly believe, and there's not evidence on either side really to support it, because this is the magic of metaphysics. You can't really touch evidence in the scientific way that we're so used to, in the West, presenting evidence and really being able to see it. It's more of a sense, it's more of an intuition, what's going on. And so realize that, potentially there are spirits at work. You can think of them as even demonic forces sometimes, but not necessarily always negative, not necessarily always positive. And just like a person, they can help you or they can hurt you. And if they have you, then certainly they're hurting you. If you can't live without them, despite the fact that you have water, you have God, you have food, then you know that they have you. And it's not good. It's not good if they have you. In a lot of ways, people compare this to somewhat of a dopamine trap. They think everything that they're doing is a way to stave off the equilibrium, which they've just totally screwed up. And there's so many things. Not only, you might not only be addicted to THC if you're smoking pot, but there's a huge dopamine release. And these things, you know, they're found in many habitual activities like marijuana, pornography, video games, watching TV, but not just unhealthy things, but also things that are good for you. Like working out, getting outside, getting exercise, seeing friends. We can really get trapped in a dopamine loop of unhealthy behaviors, and this can prevent us from really seeing the world as it is, really experiencing our lives, you know, in deep connection to God. Because if we're just standing there all the time, if we're just sitting there trying to stave off this inner feeling, do we know our connection to the kingdom of heaven, which is within, whatever you want to call it. Like sometimes I think of it like, hey, yeah, you smoke DMT and you go to another place. Like your inner world, perhaps, you know, is connected via the pineal gland or some sort of thing going on in the brain. Your inner world is maybe where you go when you die. It's hard to know what the spirit is, what animates us as human beings. And I'm not a material reductionist. I do believe that we have free will, we do have the choice. I don't think that we're just chemically bound to do what we do. I think that we all have our ways, you know. We have our heredity, and you know, the sins of the father are passed on to the son. Like this is the thing. Like maybe your parents or your grandparents or your ancestors had some issues that they didn't work out in their lifetime, and I think that we have a chance to be able to fix those problems, because in the beginning, man was perfect. Humanity didn't need to struggle in the same ways that we struggle now, but over the years, over the centuries and the millennia, we've picked up quite a few bad habits. And so we can use this life. We can use this life to, you know, take back what was originally ours. You know, from the spiritual forces of darkness, whether it be drugs, whether it be the technocrats, like the societal owners, you know. So sometimes I think a lot about just render unto Caesar what is Caesar's. And remember what belongs to you, what is of God. Try to disconnect those two. Don't confuse what belongs to God with what belongs to Caesar. And you, my friend, belong to God. You have the choice to do whatever you want with this life, but you have the potential to connect to an infinite wellspring of goodness, of energy, of power, of knowledge. And that's why we come out here and we just talk. I maybe prepare a handful of things to talk about beforehand, but in general, we just kind of do our thing. You can hear these power lines from underneath. Doesn't really seem like a good thing, but what can you do? So we're gonna check out this map here, because I still don't know where I'm going really here. take one all the way down and go left, there's like this little bridge, SP1, one. So maybe let's try that. Maybe we'll go all the way down. See if we can't connect to Trail 1 here. I'll get a cyclist that's gonna give her down here maybe. But yeah, I was talking a lot about how I pre-prepare topics for these things, and only every once in a while do I ever really get to talk about everything that I want to talk about. But there's something I was thinking about in terms of the censorship which occurs on some of these platforms, and what censorship really does, and not necessarily just in a digital form, but you can think of it in a way like if something is forbidden, it seems to have this strange allure of the unknown. And I don't know if necessarily this expression is true, but I hear religious people or people that want to stay out of hell, and truly spiritual people are people that have walked through hell and don't want to go back. And I think that it's important maybe to learn your own lessons sometimes. If you're really stubborn and you think that all religion is dogmatic, sometimes you got to learn these lessons for yourself. And that's why it's an important part of religions, is that you can be forgiven, you can be absolved the things that you've done if you truly do repent, if you believe in your heart that you've changed, and you know that some of those things that you were doing weren't good. And I think kind of like sometimes when we're not allowed to express certain things, say as a child and we're given rules by our parents, like there's no anger in the house. It's kind of like where I'm coming from. You feel these feelings and you don't know what to do with them hardly, and sometimes you just snap, as if there's no way to get it out, because you don't understand the feeling because it was just so forbidden. And sometimes when you feel this feeling, it feels good. It feels good to be angry. And I don't think it's a good thing to indulge anger, to indulge something that was forbidden. You got to find a healthy outlet for those things, and make use of your emotions. Like don't forbid yourself from feeling something that comes natural. You have to find a healthy outlet. Same thing with sadness. You can be sad, you can be angry, but don't indulge those feelings. You have to take stock of how you're feeling and find a way that you can express it in a healthy way. Because if you're not expressing it in a healthy way, oftentimes these things become fetishized. And if you have a self-fetishization of sadness or something along the lines of, you try to make yourself sad because it feels, so strange, so foreign, so forbidden. It's very, very weird. Just thinking about this, like, as a musician, sometimes, like, the most emotional tracks that you write are those ones where you're really tuned in to those emotions that you have a hard time handling. And it's a fine line between having a creative outlet and creating negative headspace in yourself, whether consciously or unconsciously, to try to recreate those original feelings which led you to be able to write the way that you wrote. Like, you don't want to put yourself through hell just so you can be a better artist, a better recognized artist even. Like, it's even worse. If you think, I'm just gonna make myself sad, I'm gonna think a bunch of sad shit, and I'm gonna it's not to say that you can't take stock of what upsets you and then write about it, because that almost seems like a healthy outlet. But if you're really finding yourself in the grips of something which, tears you down, from the inside out, or this is the other thing, like the unconscious creation of negative emotions, very dangerous. You find yourself in new situations constantly, which you're just destroying, new relationships. You're in a new place and you just start to see all the bad in the world. And I think that there's a reason why sad songs and songs which express negative emotions or difficult emotions kind of play better. They connect to a deeper part of ourselves, and maybe it's a part that we deny. Always wanting to just white knuckle our way through everything that we do. I was thinking about how maybe sometimes people have a fetish for violence, maybe a sexual fetish for violence, like getting hit, getting cut, like things like that. Like it may be because they didn't have, oh my God, there's a deer. There's a deer down there. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see it. Oh, and just like that, it disappears into the bush. Oh, what a wonderful sight. You see a fox and a deer. Oh, there he is. His big old ears. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see him. But he's back there. You can see his big old ears sticking out. Hey, boy. Wow. There he goes. Boing, boing, boing. What an amazing sight. Truly amazing. Hey, if you have a fetish for violence, it's because it was never expressed when you were younger. You were never properly disciplined. And there is something interesting too. I've been thinking more and more about the connection of sexuality and destruction. And I was thinking about like the French libertines during the time of the French Revolution. Sex was freed. The aristocratic class was highly sexual, and in a totally Dionysian, ecstatic way, like orgiastic, like just things were getting wild out there. And I find it interesting that the old societal structures were coming down. People were being killed in the streets, and at the same time, you had this huge surge of sexuality occurring at the same time. I find it very interesting. Morning. Oh, I'm just filming for some people that don't get outside enough. Yeah,
Every once in a while, about halfway between, like where that tree on the other side comes out, all right?
Yeah.
There'll be probably a muskrat that swims across.
Oh, beautiful.
Back and forth, so keep an eye out for it.
I just saw a deer over there.
Yeah.
It's amazing out here.
Yeah, it's a really nice park.
Yeah, I just recently found it, so thanks, pal. Have a great morning. You see that? There's some serious light in the world, some serious light and people that come out and connect to nature. I bet you that guy's been coming out here for a real long time. Just coming out enjoying the morning and fishing. Well, I was talking about real connection between sexuality and violence. I don't know what it is, but maybe there's just something primal, primal in us that creates a connection between those two things. Something deep within. And I think it was the goddess Inanna or Ishtar, the female god of war, which I find really interesting. I think that you could think about some connections there, that maybe the ancients understood this sort of force, destructive sexuality. Not to say that sexuality is destructive, but as the primary creative force on this world, you have to understand that there are two sides to every coin. And certainly we can see the destruction of young men occurring, with their overindulgence and pornography. Is something that chemically weakens them, destroys their gray matter in their brain. Anyone that still stands up for the use of pornography, I feel like is in denial, or they're in the grips of an addiction themselves. And there's a beautiful bridge right here. Chances are, if you're stuck in the loop, pornography, you're just not getting outside enough. And maybe it's time you did. Maybe it's time you stop screwing around so much and saw the real world outside of your pixel-driven, hyper-reality. And I use the word hyper-reality in the same way that Jean Baudrillard, the postmodern French philosopher, would use it, to say that the stimulus of our artificial world, not necessarily the internet, because I think when he was writing, he saw hyper-reality as more like television and movies, but now that we have the internet, we're even more entrenched in this type of thing. So I think what he saw hyper-reality as was just a ridiculous amount of stimuli, something that the human body is not used to. There's too much goodness, When we think about a movie, an action movie, these boring, long, drawn-out sort of scenes aren't being filmed. Unless you look at a director like Andrei Tarkovsky, who claims to film at the pace of life. And if you're used to watching movies and you try to watch a Tarkovsky movie, you might find yourself getting really sleepy, or might find yourself in a deep meditation. So those movies in of themselves are a meditation. An action movie, for example, is just all the fastest, all the most intense parts, all the parts which drive the story. And as important as it is to get from one place to another, unless there's some sort of a conversation occurring, oftentimes those places aren't included in the final cut of the movie. And so you got to take into account, when you watch a lot of TV, when you watch a lot of movies, it takes people time to get from one place to another. You can't just cut and find yourself, I get in my car and then the next scene I pull up to my driveway. There's 20 minutes between then and now. And do they include those in the final cut? No. And that's what hyperreality is. It's just cuts of the most intense stimuli possible. So pornography is an extreme hyperreality in the realm of sexuality. And I think that type of thing, when you're overexposed to it, can really disconnect you from the real world. And what the real world offers are chemical messengers, that are in line with the stimuli that you're receiving naturally. There's a nice bridge over here. There's people, I'm going to pretend to not care. Still kind of trying to get over the whole filming outside and there's people thing. But You gotta try to cut yourself off from the media matrix world, and like find the truth. Find the truth in this world. Find something that's worth looking at. And if it doesn't affect you, like realize that you might be kind of chemically screwed up. Oh, it's a great view. You can't really tell from up here. Howdy guys, good morning.
Good. How are you?
Not so bad, just filming for people that don't get out enough. So that's a pretty good normie thing to say. It's true though. If you're sitting inside just watching these and never getting out, it's kind of weird, you know? Morning. There's some serious stuff going on over here. Really cool bridges, and definitely gonna go across this footbridge over there. That looks wild. Yeah. I don't know if it really does it much justice. That's quite the drop down there. It's quite the footbridge over there too. And see if there's anything else I wanted to talk about. Well, we're talking about the when things are forbidden, you know, how they can become fetishized, how can sometimes they have this weird mysterious allure. This is quite the so you get on that bridge and you spin around and it spits you out down there. This is wild. I think I'll take a little footage from this bridge and I gotta turn around and get back home. You've almost been listening to an hour. So today we've seen a fox, a deer. We've seen a fisherman claim that there's muskrat in the water. People were really helpful. And not a speck of litter, which is incredible in my opinion. I don't know what happens to people inside to possess them to leave a litter somewhere so beautiful and so natural. Like we have garbage bin, I guess, which is nice. There's recycling and trash. I don't know if you all believe in recycling very much. Where I'm from, it's kind of a scam. A lot of the shit just ends up in sorry, I shouldn't swear. A lot of the stuff just ends up in the same receptacle. You know, even if you think that you're recycling, you might not be separating it all properly. And you know, the on-routes in Ontario, like they've got these big old boxes for recycling and trash and all that, and all these different holes, you know, cans, bottles, paper, trash. One time I looked in one of the holes and I found it's all the same bin. I talked to somebody at the on-route about it. I was like, what's going on here? They were dumbfounded. They had no idea that that's what it was like. But, well, this is a really interesting place. I think it's about time for me to be getting back to where I came from, because you know, like a cat, I'll only walk to the corner before I start to wonder, you know, do I have this area mapped out enough for me to walk in it without getting lost? It would suck to get lost out here. So I don't really know this area that well yet, so it might take me a little while to get back. So I guess we're just gonna wrap it up with the old classic. Like, you know, I love you guys for watching. Try to get off YouTube, Instagram. I haven't really talked about Facebook that much, but Facebook is obvious. If you're like a Facebook expert on anything, if you think that you're fully able to express politics, and you're not getting shot down. Like, nobody's defeating you in an argument. Like, you're the best, you're the expert. Realize it's like people with contrarian opinions, people with opinions that don't line up with the mainstream worldview, aren't allowed to say a lot on Facebook. They try to control public opinion, and that algorithm will push some of the angriest posts right to the top of the feed. And well, that, to me, it's because it's almost like bait. And those sites, they run off emotions, and if they get your emotions charged, then that's sort of how they keep people interacting with them and keep being parasitical of their time. So, morning. You really want to be careful to not engage with things like politics and stuff like that on Facebook, because it's a controlled narrative, and sometimes you just put yourself out there in a way that you don't necessarily want to. Morning. The only thing about here is quite a few people on this trail. Quite prefer the quiet one down there, but hell, that bridge is wild. The view's absolutely stunning. So stay off Instagram if you can, stay off Facebook if you can, and if you're on there, like, make sure you're using them properly. Don't post to take energy away from other people, and don't try to climb the social hierarchy as stated by Instagram or Facebook, the amount of likes that you're getting on something like that, because it's not real life. It's not true. You're not allowed to say everything. And so, staying within the boundaries of what you're allowed to say, you'll never be able to truly express what you want to express. Morning.
Good morning.
It's a real long strip, just straight away. See if I can find the way back down. All right, here we go. Yeah, just like a cat, I get to that corner and I'm like, well, I don't know this next street. I should probably take a little mental image. Even on this walk, like, I did the same loop twice. And then I decided, okay, I'm gonna go a little further, because it's not like my home, I don't know how things are out here. Some people have said, hey, stay away from certain neighborhoods, and you gotta wonder what this town was like, what this city was like 40, 50 years ago, because it seems like, I was thinking about this, like, who makes a city and thinks like, hey, we're gonna put the ghetto here, all the rundown places we're gonna put right here, all the beat down, like, shithead drug addicts, we're gonna put them all right here. We're not gonna finish any of these houses, and it's gonna be all dilapidated. Like, oftentimes these places are dilapidated because of age, because they've been there for a while, and those neighborhoods get cheap because the quality of people there declines, And I think that there's a certain shared morality of different people in different neighborhoods. If you find yourself in a weird neighborhood where there are people without a shared sense of morality, and people that don't say good morning, people that just stare at you, it can feel really alienating. And it's more important than ever in this totally divisive world where you're separated in so many different ways, or attempted to be separated by the system in so many different ways. You find yourself in a neighborhood where you feel alienated, you feel isolated, and in a way, I think that's the point of the Facebook terms of service. Just for one example, or Instagram terms of service, is to find those people with different opinions, find the real free thinkers. YouTube even. I'm not talking about anything too important. like politically or anything on here, but I think that the function of some of these technologies, these programs, are to isolate dissidents. And there's one worldview that's being pushed. It's obvious what it is to anyone that's been looking. And you can be pretty nuanced, and you might not necessarily think the way that everyone thinks that you think if you're opposed to the current worldview. But just as an old friend of mine, you find yourself totally just left out in the dust just by all your old buddies who want nothing to do with you. And when you find yourself in those sorts of situations where you're totally alone in your opinions, that's when you get sucked in to movements that are actually like really dangerous. Like cult mentality is take somebody when they're at their most vulnerable. Take somebody who's totally broken down. If you don't have any more friends, like they all abandon you because your opinions are just they're just too screwed up. Like that's when you try to look for people that it's not bad to try to find people with the same opinions, but I feel like there are organizations out there that try to find you when you're at your most vulnerable and take you. And this is like a classic like terrorist organization. Like you got nothing to lose anymore, and they build you back up however they want to build you back up. And so if you've got an old friend who maybe they fell off the rails with the way that they think, like don't leave them out there, because they'll find themselves in an echo chamber eventually. And you got to realize that as important as it is to be around people with shared morality and who think the way that you think, it's just as important to stay connected with the other world, with the other world views of people, who you care about in a way is beyond just your politics, beyond just the way that you view them, because, and this is a way to humble yourself, one, and it's a way to prevent echo chambers from forming, because disagreement and conversation through disagreement, that's the real way to truth. If you really think you've got it figured out, the world's going to throw something at you that proves you definitely don't have it figured out. Like we've been talking now on this channel for a very long time, and I don't claim to have anything figured out, because that's a really bold claim. All I can do is try my very best to connect to the source of truth, which is nature and the spirit within, and just try to express free thought. I don't want to experience moral decay, because moral decay affects the body. You degrade the body, degrade the mind, degrade the spirit. All these things are connected. And from a day-to-day, bad habit, it creates like a lifetime of decay. And so have good habits throughout the day. Go outside, work out, eat well. Try to stay off social media, or at least use it as a tool. Control your feed. Like, don't fall victim to the traps that are set before you. Don't consent to the mainstream worldview, which wants you weak, which wants you spending all your time, because that's, time is money. That's what they say. That's why people get paid by the hour. The real wealth is social connections, people that you care about, finding your tribe in this world, and not only finding people that think the same way, but being able to connect with people that think differently than you, being able to find common ground, and getting closer to that real interpersonal truth, that thing that connects us all, life, God, logos. There should be no secrets in this world either. So, whatever you're holding back, whatever terrible thing that you think you've done, like, express it, get past it. Don't allow something that's raising you up to hold others down. And just like every other day, we're gonna post one of these every Wednesday, and that's about all I've got for today. So thanks for listening. I love you guys, and stay healthy. It's been Wander and Wonder, signing off. Or to die.